Welcome to the broadcast, everybody. I thought I'd better mention the books in the background that used to grace the shelves behind me and around me, and they created a rather cosy scene, didn't they? Well, they'd been missing for several months. I did tell you at the time that they were taken away while I was spring cleaning, and I was actually cataloguing some of my books because they're very old. And I promised that they would return, and I will stick to that promise. They are going to return. Some of you have asked where they are. You miss seeing them. You will be seeing them again, my dears. The truth of the matter is that I am in a sort of limbo stage at the moment, a little bit unsure of what is around the corner, and I have hinted to you a few times that I might be recording my broadcasts from a different space in the future, and I had thought that that might be happening now, but it is not as yet. And I don't mean to be enigmatic about it, but I don't want to jinx certain things, and I don't like speaking things out into the public until I'm assured of them. But I am working on that change of space behind the scenes, and I want to keep the familiar that we all know, but also balance it with some new freshness to the scene here on the broadcast. So let's all keep our fingers crossed that my plans come to fruition, because it will benefit us all, and it will also perhaps give me the opportunity to have a more practical space to record in and a more versatile space. So it's an exercise in patience, as many things in life are, aren't they, my dears? But we will get there eventually. And I would also like to thank all of you for the quality of comments, especially recently, that have been very thought-provoking and informative. Thank you, my dears. Deborah Williams says, River, what do you think of Prince William's beard? Face furniture. Well, did you see it? There was a star-studded montage that was praising Team GB at the Olympics, featuring the Prince and Princess of Wales, an array of stars of the firmament, and Catherine was resplendent in her Ralph Lauren Breton stripe top. And actually the press said that she was wearing a new band on her wedding ring finger. They might be correct. I couldn't quite pinpoint which ring it was, but it might have been her promise ring, which she's had for many years, before the marriage even, which features their birthstones of pearl and garnet studding a rose gold band. So it might have been that, might not. I expect one of you might know. But of course the big story was Big Willie, or should I say Hairy Big Willie, because the internet was thirsting for our handsome heir to the throne. He was called rugged by the press. His Royal Highness was transformed into his Hirsute Highness, and I don't think that version of the prince has been seen for nigh on 16 years. I might be mistaken, but I think it was back in 2008 when we last were treated to the sight of Hairy Big Willie. And in answer to your question, my dear, I do think that the beard suits him. It's nice to have a different flavour, as it were, and it also puts one in mind of various kings and princes of the past that he looks like down the family line. But if I had to plump for one look for life, then it would be William clean shaven. I do prefer that, my dear. If I had to plump for one, that masculine jawline of his, I think, deserves to be seen, not hidden away. A beard comes in handy if you're a little bit weak around here, or there's something that you want to conceal. And I mean no disparagement to him, but Trump's vice president pick, what's that one called? You know the one, my dear. J.D. Vance, that's it, J.D. Vance, hides all kind of sins under his beard, and it actually behooves him. But with William, he can play on both looks, but I prefer clean shaven, nice and smart. There we go. But nice to have something, a little amuse-bouche, wasn't it, my loves? Nice to have something to keep us entertained. But turning to Prince Harry's looks, Edward Tremaine said to me, Dear River, I know you reject the notion that James Hewitt fathered Prince Harry, and like you, I see both King Charles and Prince Philip in Harry. Yes, I do. I see it quite plainly. Who else does he take after on that side of the family? Well, several members of the royal family could be held up as an example. But one lesser-known royal who shares striking facial similarities to Prince Harry is Princess Victoria of Hesse by Rhine. And I'll flash a few images up to see whether or not you agree with me, but I can see it clear as daylight, my dear. Princess Victoria was one of Queen Victoria's grandchildren, and her face is remarkably reminiscent of an array of royal faces that we all know. I see Charles, I see a lot of Charles, I see a lot of Elizabeth, but in different ways and around the mouth, and of course Anne and Zara. There are endless connections there, but I see a distinct likeness above all, really, to Prince Harry and his features. Yes, I do. They've got the same bones. They've got the same bones, the scaffolding, if you will. Charles has it too, but particularly with Harry, it is the small, close-set eyes that I see, the profile, and especially in her later seasons, they have similar hair. And she went on to become Princess Louis of Battenberg, and after that, Victoria Mountbatten, Marchioness of Milford Haven, and her mother was Princess Alice, and Princess Alice died at the age of only 35, so she was fairly young. That wasn't unusual to die young in those days, of course, but she died of diphtheria at 35, and Princess Alice was one of Queen Victoria's 9 issue, and Alice was one of 3 issue to predecease their mother, Queen Victoria. And Princess Victoria was Princess Alice's first child from an issue of 8, before Princess Alice died, as I say, at the age of 35. And so as the eldest child, a lot of the responsibility for her siblings fell to Princess Victoria. And eventually she married her first cousin once removed, as my own grandmother did as well, I've got to tell you. In fact, I'm not even sure if she was once removed to my grandfather. They might have actually been cousins. I always forget the tale, probably intentionally. But there we go, my dear. Country folk. Might explain a little bit about me, mightn't it? She married her first cousin once removed, and that cousin was Prince Louis of Battenberg. As I'm telling you this, by the way, I can see that I'm looking over here and then looking to you at the camera. Very occasionally, someone or other will complain, this has happened a couple of times, complain that I look in this direction, I glance over here and then to the camera. Yes, people actually take the time to complain about this, or ask what I'm looking at and what I'm doing. So just to explain to those of you who are curious, I'm actually, when I'm looking here, I'm looking in front of me. My chair is slightly at an angle. I'm looking towards some French doors, because that's where the view is, my dear, and one tends to look into the distance there. I'm sorry that I'm not just squarely looking at you for the entire time we're nattering away. If that feels natural to you, I don't know. But yes, I do. I do tend to glance away and glance here and there. Boggles the mind, doesn't it, what troubles some people, but I just wanted to throw that in there so that you understand exactly what I'm doing at every split-second moment. Many of you simply listen to me anyway, without looking at what's going on the camera. It's more like a podcast or a radio station, I suppose, a radio broadcast. I digress. So she married Louis of Battenberg, and of their issue of 4 children, the most well-known was her son Louis, named after the father, and he of course went on to become Lord Mountbatten, of great fame, the last Viceroy of India, and he was also of course the person who had a great influence over our present king. Now, Princess Victoria's eldest daughter went by the name of Alice. Do you see where the connection is going to be made? Because it was Alice who went on to marry Prince Andrew of Greece and Denmark. And together they issued Prince Philip, which means, of course, that Princess Victoria was also Prince Philip's granny. Small world, isn't it, my dear? Well, Princess Victoria was highly educated. She was bright as a button. And she was practical. And she was known for being very liberal-minded, rather ahead of her time, and she had a particular interest in socialist philosophy. And 18 years after her death, her son Lord Mountbatten said of Princess Victoria, "She was completely methodical. She taught me to enjoy working hard and to be thorough. She was outspoken and open-minded to a degree quite unusual in members of the royal family, and she was also entirely free from prejudice about politics or colour and things of that kind." Isn't that interesting? And in her dotage and her widowhood, in her guise as Dowager Marchioness, She was a matriarchal presence to European royalty from the confines of her grace and favour apartment at Kensington Palace, and she oversaw the education of the little nipper, Prince Philip, who praised her for her way with children, saying that she had the right combination of the rational and the emotional. She was still alive when Prince Charles was born, and in 1948 she attended his christening, but 2 years later she fell ill. She fell to bronchitis, and she had been a very heavy smoker all of her life, since the age of 16, but that didn't prevent her from living a very long life. She lived well into the winter season, in fact, dying at the age of 87. And her character, although she had socialist leanings, was in nature very different to that of her relative, Prince Harry, because she preferred to be unsung, her achievements to be unsung. She preferred to go without glory. She didn't feel that her ego needed to be fed in that way, with that sort of narcissism. And in a letter to her son, Lord Mountbatten, she actually said close to her death, "What will live in history is the good work done by the individual, and that has nothing to do with rank or title. I never thought that I would be known only as your mother. You're so well known now, and no one knows about me, and I don't want them to." Some words of wisdom here that made me chuckle for Harry via a basketeer by the name of Diana Lecomte. "Greetings from Texas River. Just a little something for your fruit baskets." I think you mean our fruit basketeers, my dear. "And for the new and uninitiated. My viewers are known as basketeers. The phrase was coined by a viewer by the name of Fly on the Wall as her username. Haven't mentioned that for a while. She coined that wonderful, marvellous term, the basketeers, because the comment section is the fruit basket, and you are my fruits, which is Cockney rhyming slang for chum. My fruits, my fruit gum, my chum. That is how we arrived at that particular destination, my dear. It's a curious old world, isn't it? Strange old world, funny old world, but full of amusement. Something for your fruit basketeers. There are 3 kinds of men. The one that learns by reading, a few who learn by observation, and the rest of them have to pee on the electric fence for themselves." I like that. I very much enjoyed that, Diana Lecomte. Very much enjoyed that. Yes, well, Harry has been urinating all over that electric fence for some time, hasn't he? And he still doesn't seem to get the message, no matter what shocks his system. And he keeps peeing on our leg, doesn't he? On our legs, and telling us that it's raining. We don't buy that either. Another nugget of treasure came through courtesy of Mildida Briscoe, who said, "Have you heard of this Dutch proverb, River? The gem cannot be polished without friction, nor man perfected without trials." And it's food for thought, isn't it, my dear? The friction and the trials of life that we all experience from time to time, think of them as a means by which to polish the jewel of your character and your nature, polishing them to a radiant brilliance. Now, I wanted to put your minds at rest because I've had several comments coming in concerned about the civil unrest here in the kingdom and about London in particular. Marion Singer was one who said, "My husband and I have booked a UK trip in September and I'm increasingly concerned for our safety. Is London safe?" And I'll read out my reply here, because it will apply to many of you. And I said, "Yes, you'll be fine, my dear. It's a huge city inhabited by millions who just go about their daily lives just fine. And it's still fabulous. These are tiny minority incidents. Just keep your wits about you like in any world city." So I wanted you to know that that's the way it is. Things here are still marvellous. Like London on its worst day, and it's going through a pretty rotten period at the moment, on its worst day is still a more glittering, more fabulous, truly outstanding city than virtually anywhere else that you'll find on earth. And the fact of the matter is that it is so sprawling. There are many cities within the city, if you understand, cities and villages and enclaves to discover. And sometimes it takes a very long time to live among those places, and they reveal themselves to you. But of course there are also many places where you get instant gratification, and I've got to tell you that in all the years I've done this broadcast, many of you made the trip over here from abroad, especially during the coronation, and I can't think of one time when you've been disappointed. It doesn't spring to mind. I'm sure it happens. There are many times when I look around at tourists schlepping from one place to the other, thinking they must be having a miserable time with their backpacks and with inclement weather and going to all kinds of tacky tourist experiences. But most people tend to find things that they enjoy and come away feeling that they are taking something with them to treasure, memories to treasure. Burley Tunbridge backed up what I said and said, "River, my daughter, a friend and I recently visited London and 5 other countries. London was by far our favourite city by a country mile. We felt safe, experienced wonderful hospitality, kindness and helpfulness. Your reply to the above query was spot on." Well, I'm glad to hear it, my dear. Of course, you've got to keep your wits about you, like in any busy city, you know. I mean, you should be absolutely fine on the London Underground, the Tube, but you don't wander around with your purse half open, you know. Keep an eye on things like your wallet and watch, put a lock on your phone, of course a password. Be conscious of these things on your person. Don't parade around flaunting that kind of thing and make yourself an easy target. But most places are well lit and busy, and there will be friendly faces to find. If you don't go looking for trouble, it will seldom come to find you. The King has not so far made a formal speech on the issue of the civil unrests that we've experienced, but a spokesman for the King, who is based at Burke Hall at the moment, did announce that in addition to the private calls His Majesty has been making throughout the week concerning recent events, and in particular the impact they have had on affected communities, the King held a phone audience with the Prime Minister and additionally had a joint call with the Chair of the National Police Chiefs Council and the Chief Constable of Essex. In these calls, His Majesty was updated on the current situation and expresses heartfelt thanks to the police and emergency services for all they are doing to restore peace in those areas that have been affected by violent disorder. Additionally, the King shared how he had been greatly encouraged by the many examples of community spirit that had countered the aggression of criminality from a few with the compassion and resilience of the many. It remains His Majesty's hope that shared values of mutual respect and understanding will continue to strengthen and unite the nation. And I happen to agree with Jenny Bond, who I saw offering her opinion on this reaction. She said that he was giving moral, not political leadership, and he got the tone exactly right, and that it wasn't too interfering, wasn't too overbearing, wasn't really picking any political side or persuasion. And it didn't refer to diversity, you know, it didn't shove all of that down our throats, and wasn't too condescending in that way. So I actually feel that he did strike the right note. He didn't go to the lengths of providing a speech so far at this point in time, but he made his thoughts known and the details of his conversation with the Prime Minister. Kathy Johnson says, "I hope Meghan saw how the people of the UK came out to stand against the racists. Well done, UK." Well, without wanting to throw water on what you just wrote, because it absolutely makes sense, I will just make the point that not all of the thugs, because many of them were thugs, not all of them, but there were a lot of thugs involved in the rioting, but not all of the thugs or all of the protesters are racist. This is a conclusion that people jump to. I'm sure a handful of them might have been, but others are disaffected, disillusioned. Others are just plain old hooligans and old-fashioned thugs with no excuse whatsoever, ne'er-do-wells. So I'm not making excuses for anybody, but we can't start painting them all as racists and using that just because they were protesting. I'm not having that, with respect. That's the first point. Secondly, Meghan, my dear, would only see the racists. You know, you say she would have seen the people of the UK coming out to stand against the racists. She wouldn't want to see that, so she would stay blind to it, my dear. This is the tragedy. She would only see the racists, and she would only see it as evidence of the bigotry that she accused the kingdom of, do you see? she will flip it and use what she wants to make the point that she wishes to make, and I would not be at all surprised if you see her refer to this matter of civil unrest recently and the rioting, refer to it as evidence to back up her vulgar claims. And now that the Olympics are over, before we move on to the Paralympics, the King has furnished us with a message to say that my wife joins me in sending our warmest congratulations to the competitors and their support teams from Team GB and across the whole Commonwealth for their many outstanding successes at the Olympic Games in Paris. Your achievements across so many disciplines were forged from that invaluable combination of raw talent, true grit, and hard toil over many years, burnished these past weeks by sportsmanship and team spirit in the finest tradition of the Games. To those who missed out on the greatest prizes, you have most certainly not fallen short in the pride that you too have generated for your nations. As we thank France for hosting such a wonderful tournament and look to the Paralympics ahead, I can only say that you have all been an inspiration. Charles R. And thank you for continuing to inspire me, my dear old fruits. Leave me your juicy thoughts in the comment section. I look forward to hearing from you and seeing you next time on the next River broadcast. Doodle pip!